We'll give it a couple minutes.
Yeah, sure.
Have
Indeed.
some people. We are live.
Online. Yeah. We are live. We're making things happen here in just a moment.
Yeah, as soon as people start
So,
to watch. I mean, I
you're,
did share it to like plenty of groups.
oh, good. That's always good.
So I'm hoping, that this is like, everybody's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. They're not used to me going on at 7:33. They're probably like, oh, I got about 10 minutes. Turn where they go on. I'm sure she goes on.
Yeah, that's all right.
And like I said, the
I've
whole
been trying to do these things a little bit later because I was trying to do them at like 5:30 right after work or 6 o'clock, but I'm always sitting in traffic and I'm like just getting nervous. I'm like, I'm not going to make it home in time. So I'm like, all right, let me just take it easy and start pushing it back a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And like if you would have like messaged me and was like, look, I'm running late, that would have been fine. You know what I mean? I this has always been my time slot. So like I kind of just like, well, actually when I first started, I was all over the place. I was like, I gotta have like some consistency. Like I have to say, okay, my show's every Wednesday, 7, and that was just what I picked, 7:30 at that time. Like it just kind of stuck. And now here I am 5 years later. I'm still doing Wednesdays at 7:30.
Good. It works.
So we have some people on now. So
excellent.
We have a lot of people on. Hi, everybody. So for anybody that doesn't know that's watching, this is Dustin. Now I'm going to say, forgive me. Is it Pari or Parry?
Parry. Yeah, that one's good. Yep.
Okay.
As long as they spell it right on the check, I don't care how the hell they pronounce it.
That's right. That's so true. So this is Dustin Pari from, you were with Ghost Hunters first and then went to Ghost Hunters International.
Yeah, and then back to Ghost Hunters again, and now and then Ghost Adventures for an episode, and now back to Ghost Hunters again. Ghost Hunters is kind of fun. It's like the mafia. Like you can never really leave. Like you think you're out, then like, hey, why don't you come? And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, this will be fun. We're gonna do some more, So
it's Jason. He's got that like Jedi mind trick where
we both grew up here in Rhode Island. It's just an old Italian neighborhood kind of thing. There's a lot going on here,
Yes, for sure, for sure. So, I, from a watcher of all the shows, you always, now you might not be, I mean, from the couple minutes that we've been talking, you're totally not quiet and shy and,
right.
But on the shows, like you were always kind of like the one that was like,
yeah, I just kind of hang in the back. I like to observe things,
Yeah.
I just, especially being like reality TV, like I would never consider myself an actor. And like, any emotion that feels forced to me, I don't want to do because like, it just doesn't seem natural that I would act that way, So yeah, I always just kind of hang back, and that's not a comment on the others. Like Tango gets very like excited about things, very easily. I'm always like, I was at a live wrestling event the other day, and like, you might have thought I was watching golf. I'm sitting there so quiet, but I'm enjoying the hell out of myself. Right. I don't emote it out all the time, So, but what I liked about that though, and I always thought was a great takeaway. Some people that would come to the events or would email me would tell me that when you react to something, I know something's really going on because you usually don't react to anything, So, it's not because I'm like big and macho and brave. I'm usually just kind of waiting to see, usually the paranormal stuff that happens is very subtle. So I like to give it time to grow instead of getting like super excited and amped up about stuff right away.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And that's important that you say that because like now, like, I mean, Ghost Hunters was like, kind of like, I mean, for me, I know this is going to probably sound corny, but that was when I first started to get into everything, into the paranormal side of life. And it was kind of like you guys were kind of like a mentor. You know what I mean? I feel like, the way you guys investigate still, which I love that you've kept it
consistent,
real, is how I feel, investigations should be done, whether they're private homes or whether they're, historical sites, whatever. I mean, you guys have always handled yourselves very professional, very, you take care of the clients first. Yeah. And there is none of that like drama, it's like, oh my God. Like
it's not, I don't think it's ever been our style. And what's nice is, especially with Jason having so much control within production and how it's portrayed, we were never made to have to act one way or react one way. Like the most they'll ever ask us to do is, hey, could we just get you guys to walk in that door again? Like we missed that, like that stuff. But the investigation is completely ours. So that really kind of just, gives us the reins to do whatever we want. So, and for me, like I was like the original fanboy. Like I watched season 1 of Ghost Hunters like everybody else. I'm like, how do I get involved with these guys? I'm like, I live in the same state. I never knew there were teams. I used to just go do this stuff myself. I'm like, how are these guys here? And I have no idea about it. And I'm like getting chased out of places. They're getting invited in places. So I had to figure that out. But, yeah, and it's nice. And I think it's cool. Like the technology changes. We use some different things and everything. For me, it's always been a very spiritual journey. But yeah, I think there's a lot of consistency in the way that Jay and Steve run the team now, and with the way that we've always done it. So that's always been, even when I was on the international, days, like we kept things very even keel, didn't jump to conclusions with things, and try to have some fun and see what's out there.
Yeah, that's what I love. And there's people that thrive off of that other stuff, and it's like, I just want to see, like, literally Ghost Hunters, and a lot of Josh Gates stuff, and I watch, because it's good TV to me. I a long time ago, you know how it is when people come in and they're like, oh, we want to do a show about, I was with a group that had a Ghost Hunter store. They wanted to do a show about the store. They picked 10 people. They were like telling me like, oh, how did you get into the paranormal? But you got to be excited about it. And I'm like,
yeah, it doesn't fit.
It's not like I was trying. I was like, so I went to Gettysburg and I was like trying to be,
yeah,
like I can't do it.
No.
And I'm like, they don't do that. Like they act normal.
Yeah, because if you do that and you represent yourself as something that you're not, you just flushed all your credibility down the drain. And then 2, you're pigeonholed to keep that character up every time you go everywhere. Like,
yeah,
do that.
And that's the other thing too. They wanted, so my at the time, I had a boyfriend and he was a part of it. And he's like, well, okay, well, we're gonna make it that you cheat on him with somebody else in the store.
Yeah,
and I was like, really? I was
yeah,
like, no.
Yeah, no,
I can't do that.
There's a lot of different shows out there with different approaches and stuff. And I always say, like, it's fine. There's plenty of good people for everybody. People can investigate their own way. And some people like a more dramatic approach. Some people like a more scientific approach. Some people like something in the middle, I don't know. I sit around and watch Ancient Aliens all the time, and I'm completely happy. And Shark Week's coming, so I'm excited about that. Like, these are the things that I watch quite a bit, So I'm excited about those things coming around again.
Shark Week has prevented me from going on a cruise. Just saying.
I don't know. Like I haven't been on a cruise in forever, but I enjoy a good cruise. I don't really think about sharks when I'm out there. We used to have a small boat when I was a kid, and I don't know. And we had a couple over the years. It was like 23, 25 footer we had at the time. And we would go to the beach, and I had like this rubber Zodiac raft with a little engine on it. And I would go like to the beach and go back and forth. I was like 12, 13. And I remember one time I was at the beach. I went and got some clam cakes. And if you're not from this area, you're not familiar with them. But it's basically like a ball of dough, like fried dough with like clam juice and little clam bits in it. And I don't like seafood really, so I just try not to look at the clam bits, but I like the salty fried taste of it all. And so I get a bag of those. And I was back in the raft heading back to the boat, and all of a sudden I hear like the lifeguard like yelling, and everyone's like yelling, and I look and everyone's going like this. I'm like, what's going on? And I'm like, oh, and then I saw the actual fin. I was like, this is no good. I'm in a tiny raft and there's a fin. I don't think like a smaller shark, but still. Yeah, I was like, let me just get back to the boat.
So, yeah, I would have been having a panic attack.
Yeah, it was really, it was something. But I got back, had my clam cakes, everything was fine. I'm fascinated by them, but I'm also terrified of them. Like, it sounds so stupid, but like, I'll look at a picture of one like with its mouth open, like a still photo, and I'll get like weak in the knees. I'll feel like I'm gonna pass out, because it's just, you can just go right in there, just eat you one big bite. It's
oh my gosh.
Terrifying. But I don't know. I've been quietly trolling the network on Twitter, trying to see if maybe next year I could be part of Shark Week. I think that somewhere down there has to be like a sunken pirate ship or something, and we could do an underwater EVP session surrounded by sharks. So I would be terrified of the sharks.
That would be awesome.
I could do an EVP session underwater, and we could see if we could talk to old dead pirates.
Yeah, why not?
Everybody wins with this scenario.
Everybody. I would watch that one. I would watch that one for sure. 1,000%.
I love sharks, but I'm afraid.
Um, so you said something. So let's go. I want to go back a little bit because
Okay.
you said this whole journey has been kind of spiritual for you,
Yeah,
right? Um,
for sure.
Now, when you say spiritual, like, are you uh just have you always been into the paranormal and like kind of, and then you got to where you're at, or
It's been a weird journey, and it continues to get stranger, which is good because it's exciting. I was raised, at Catholic school, that kind of thing, and it was fine. I appreciated the teachings, a lot of the understandings, but by the time I get out of high school, I always tell everyone I just didn't feel like it connected. Like I appreciated all the understandings and all the teachings that were taught to me, and I thought that the Ten Commandments really just come down to like don't be a jerk. It's pretty simple, but we all struggle. I put in all my lectures. I really believe we're spirits going through this human experience, and we're not from here, and we don't stay here. But while we are here, we should kind of help each other out a little bit. And for me, it was a personal journey for a while. Like I would go off investigating by myself and stuff, like since I was like 15 or so, and
Mhm.
it was kind of like just to get a scare or to see what was out there and try to learn more. And then I would read books about it and such, and um, it really came together right before Ghost Hunters for me. And I realized that these figures, these entities, these voices, whatever it was, for me was proof of an afterlife, which solidified the idea that something happens to our energy, our soul, our spirit, whatever you want to call it, after the physical part passes away. And I wanted to try to explore that further. In the time in between high school and Ghost Hunters, which was many moons, but I studied Eastern philosophy and Taoism and Buddhism, and I found a lot of things that I liked. And I always tell people I believe like religion is like Hallmark cards. Like they have like mahogany and shoebox. Like people of different skin tones, people that like to laugh, and just how I feel for people that like to cry. But like every little division, every different religion has a different looking prophet of a different name, of a different tongue, because we're more likely to listen to people that are easily identifiable to us.
Sure.
People from our nation, people from our background, our heritage. When the immigrants come to America, they live in immigrant housing together in their own communities because they understand their own ways and they understand their language. Comfort helps us to get started, but then it's so important to diversify and to grow. But for me, coming from Catholicism and then starting to read all these different things, I was like, wait a second. I remember, like, there was a Jesus teaching about this, but then Buddha saying this, and it's really the same thing. And it all just comes down to love. So, like, I always tell people, whatever you want to believe, whoever your prophet is, God, goddess, or whatever, just be decent to each other while we're here. And
Absolutely.
I was really hoping when they offered me Ghost Hunters that, I could maybe use the show to help people to realize, just like I had come to realize, that if we're getting recordings of voices, if we're getting images on camera and video, the other side's a very real thing. So our spirit's a very real thing. And regardless of what religion you may or may not subscribe to, having the understanding that our spirit and our energy goes on from here, there has to be some cosmic karma. There has to be some balance in all of this. And I
Mhm.
think what we do here while we are here matters. And I was hoping that by showing people proof of the afterlife, we might be able to make this life a little bit better and kind of live kinder, happier lives. So I don't know how well I'm doing with it, but I keep trying. It seems like the world gets dark, but I'm like, damn it, I'm not giving up. I'm just going to keep doing what I do,
Yeah,
just
don't give up.
one little fish at a time. We're making a difference.
I agree with you. I was raised Catholic. And then as you get older, you start to learn things and you're like, wait a minute, and then I said, organized religion, it's all it is it started somewhere. And then people said, yeah, I don't like that rule. So I'm going to go over here and start this one. And I don't like that rule. So I'm going to go over here and start this and minus that out, but I'm going to add this, you know what I mean? So it's for me, all the different stuff is just man-made, like
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's a higher power, whatever it is that you believe in, and for me it is spiritual. Like I'm very big on like the archangels and the,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
I mean, currently today, I would, identify myself in a spiritual way as a Christian. I go into
Mhm.
Catholic church, but I don't believe. I don't agree. Rather, I don't want to say believe. I don't agree with all the dogma, especially like the papal decrees and the Pope and like the man-made stuff.
Yeah.
If I go back and I look at the old texts, I like stuff from the Dead Sea Scrolls and everything, which sometimes ties in with aliens and ghosts, which is fun. But I like that because these are some of the books that were thrown out when the Romans came in and said, okay, this is our official religion. We're getting rid of this, but we're going to keep that. We're going to get rid of this, but we're going to keep that. It's like, come on, like you can't you can't pick and choose, and then you can't just pay off sins, which they did for a while too. It's like,
Right,
no,
right.
perfect. We go through this life, we do the best we can, we hopefully learn, we hopefully help each other, and we get to the next level. We get to the next level. I think that's how reincarnation might work. Like maybe you're just leveling up to you finally like you get to fight a mini boss, and then you're done. So hopefully, I'm hoping I'm done. I'm tired. It's been a long road, but I'm learning things still, and I'm trying to help as I go through it. But I could use a break at some point. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you will not remember this. This was probably, I can't even remember how long ago it was. Ghost Hunters was on, and you were with Ghost Hunt. I can't remember if you were already with International or you were with just there was an investigation at Fort Mifflin,
Mhm.
and you were there, Steve was there, Tango was there. And I remember it was like my first it was like again, like I was still like, you know, like this little enthusiast running around, like I knew what I was doing, but I really had no idea what I was doing. And I remember walking around, and you were so awesome. Like, not that Steve and Tango weren't; they were awesome too. They're great.
Great
They're
guy.
great guys. I love them. Um, but you actually like you stopped, you took the time out to like walk around with my little group, and you were like talking, and we went into a casemate together. I was like, this is so awesome, because we didn't get to do that with him, and I was like, he's
Right.
so awesome. And
Yeah.
from then on out, I'm like, if anybody says anything bad about Dustin Pari, you can come see me. That guy is a good guy.
Very nice of you to remember that, and I appreciate you sharing it with me. That's very kind.
Yeah, it was a very cool experience, and
Yeah.
it also kind of, it made it like, wow, these people are really like down to earth or awesome. You know what I mean? It made it a little easier than,
Yeah.
to
It's
kind of
really
like,
when you just watch TV. It's not always humanizing.
it really isn't. You never know, right? You never
Yeah.
know. I mean, you hear all kinds of stuff about people that are on TV, like either they're assholes or they're nice or they're awesome or whatever. But
Yeah.
so far, I mean, like, but you were the first one that kind of like was, and I was like, wow, I'm like, they're really cool.
Yeah.
It kind of just.
Thank you. Thank you, Darren.
So I am, just so you know, in a couple weeks, I'm having Barry on.
Oh, wonderful. He's such a
Yeah.
splendid fellow.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
if you're around, by all
Yeah,
means,
I'll have
you're
to see
really
if I can
welcome to
check it out.
crash the party.
Last we video chatted, he had this wonderful proper beard. It was like tricolored. He looked like an old time prophet. I was like, of course you would have a beard like that. Just everything about him has always been a little bit magical. That luck of the Irish thing going on. So he's
Yes.
one of my favorite people, and I learned so much from him. Like just expanding like my horizons and understanding the different ways of. Because when I first went to Ireland, like this back with the Ghost Hunters, we first went there before it was GHI, and we did Lep Castle, and they're talking about the fairies and the fae and all this stuff. I'm like Tinkerbell. I'm like, this is all nonsense. I'm like, oh, these people are just drunk. But then I started to take on a new understanding, and the more that I learned, I was like, okay, my circle's always been really small. My understanding, my standpoint needs to evolve, and I need to learn, and that is a journey that still continues today. And I'm always thankful, either through osmosis or by actually being able to sit and study with some of these people, to learn new techniques and new ideas. I've been very good friends with John Zaffis for many years, and I mean the guy's like he's like our last living legend, I feel like, in the paranormal. Because
Yeah.
there's still a lot of great people out there, but I mean, from that time period, like,
Yep.
Rosemary Guiley and Hans Holzer, like all those people, unfortunately, have already passed to the other side, but
Yeah.
old man Zaffis, so that's good.
And see, and that is what the people like, those, there's so much people out there now that are putting these videos up on YouTube, and then like just faking stuff and like
Yeah.
doing all kinds of stuff. I'm like, these people, like all these people that are just jumping into this paranormal field and doing all this stuff just to kind of, they have to, I wish they would just sit back and learn from you guys and John's, like the people that have been in this, that do it the right way for the right reasons. And, you're not, everybody, it's just ridiculous. And it turns it into such a gimmicky thing, because they just can't just investigate. Like, just do it right. Like you're not going to go into a location and always find something,
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I mean, the shows are highlight reels at best, of the time that we spend there. But I've always felt like, if you want to try a new way of investigating, you want to try an old school method, or you want to try some new technology, whatever it is, give it some time, see how it works, but you have to be honest about it. I kind of feel like, one, I don't think we're ever meant to have all the answers to what we do. Like I don't think we should skip ahead to the end of the book. Like
Right.
this human experience, as strange as it is here for us for a reason. But I don't think we're supposed to be, completely obscured from knowing that there is something after this. I think that's kind of like, forever that dangling carrot, that there's something still to look forward to. But there's work to be done here. And I always felt personally that the field itself maybe never moved as fast as we want it to, because spiritual interaction is usually very subtle. It's very slow, I can't go into like haunted house attractions and stuff because I hate pop out scary things, but I can go sit in a haunted castle because I know if something happens, it's usually going to be very slow to come about, or I might see something walking by, but it's going to be very rare and it's not a scary thing. And I kind of felt that maybe we would have been further along in our studies if people hadn't gone to such extremes to fake some evidence for notoriety, for monetary wealth, or for
Right.
likes or clicks or whatever it is now. But I also feel like a lot of times people do want to take this seriously, but then they see some obvious fraudulent nonsense, and then they just kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater. They're like, oh, all that's just ridiculous.
Yeah. Yep.
But I work in the medical field. I know some of the doctors that know what I do, like they're all very, very science based, and they think it's all nonsense. But then I'll play something for them. I'm like, can you explain this for me? Like, and then like it takes a while, and then like when you show the circumstances in which you recorded this voice or you captured this image, and there's no other explanation. I just want to plant that seed for them to think about. I don't want to try to convert anybody. I'm not trying to baptize anybody. I don't care what you want to believe. But I just want you to think that there is possibly something else, and you don't have to accept it. You don't have to, go from skeptic to believer, but somewhere in between, where you're at least open to the idea that there's more going on than this. Which, honestly, just from like a motivational side, we need more than this, because this is kind of like, it's been fluttering these last couple of years. I find joy in like going hiking and hanging out with friends and stuff, but like, you just watch TV all day, you'd be like, why am I here? What is going on?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And I like, I'm much like you, where it's like when I first started, it was all, for lack of better description, ghosts, spirits, right? And as I started doing my show and everything, I started to just expand out. So now I have people on that are parapsychologists, physicians, Bigfoot people, people that, just I'm just like, I want to learn about everybody's thing. Like, I want to learn what a Bigfoot researcher does and how they go out and investigate. And you know what I mean? Like, there's so much to learn out there, and unfortunately, a lot of the people, they just go into it thinking they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Or pretend, they fake it till they make it or something. I don't even know. And I'm talking about the YouTube people that are out there and that are, making this look like a bad thing, and or gimmicky. But, I try to, when I do investigations, I go live the entire time on YouTube and Facebook, and I'm totally, it can be boring. I mean, like there's like 3 or 4 hours, and I've said that so much. I'm like, nobody's going to watch 3 hours of sitting in the dark and us talking about what are we going to eat when we get out of here, and this and that, but I still do it because I'm not erasing anything. I'm not faking anything. I'm not adding anything. First of all, I don't even know how to do any of that stuff. So I wouldn't even know what to do.
Yeah, for sure. I like my good friend John Tenney out of Michigan always says, like, there's enough stuff out there, like diversify your weirdness, like look into other things. And I think the most important thing is to just say that you don't know. Like there's no something that's not proven, and I've gone on a Bigfoot expedition one time. I've gone with Josh Gates looking for a shapeshifter. I've gone with just some friends, like a skinwalker thing, just because I'm like, oh yeah, let's go. Like, I don't know how to do it, but yeah, I can go look for things. Like, I'm interested in it,
Right.
And when I was a kid, I mean, as much as my first encounter was with a shadow figure, but throughout high school, like, you know how you become like typecast for something, and then every holiday, every gift you get is that. Like, everything for me was aliens. It was all alien t-shirts, alien mannequins, alien books. Like, that's all it was. And I still love that. My first tattoo was of a alien, but I just it's not all I cared about. But then the cool thing I feel like is the more we do this, the more we start to see how possibly interwoven all this stuff is. When you go and research, like Frank's box was originally believed to have been communicating with aliens. Like, okay, this is a whole different thing. And I'm at Dan Klass's Hinsdale house with my buddy Cody, and we turn on the thing, and all of a sudden we get this voice saying, "We're watching you from above," and they call us Earthies and all these things. And I'm like, what the heck is going on right now? Like,
Oh,
who are we
wow.
talking to, you know? And then there's documentation of like oral tradition stuff that was passed down, but eventually written down of our native people here in America, talking about Sasquatch, but they describe them as crazy bears that came down from an egg in the sky. Like, what is going on? So we have aliens, we have Bigfoot. Like, who are we talking to? There's so much weird stuff, and I don't want to, like, I have a lecture that's like an A through Z, like cryptozoological, like aliens, like all the weird stuff, you know. And one of the things I talk about is like the Loch Ness monster. As a kid, I loved the idea of the Loch Ness monster, and I still do. And it's sad to see that like your sightings have really kind of fallen off, you know. But I don't want to live in a world where there's no magic, where there's no potential for there to be something else, where everything has to be explainable. Like everything has to be just something we can write down and chart and graph. Like there's no magic there, and this life, that magic is not really that exciting, I feel.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, I said, if we found the answers, what would we do?
Right? Yeah. What happens then? Yeah, you know.
And I've always said this. I've always said that, let's say you're an alien guy. I'm a ghost person. You know, maybe, it is all the same thing. It's how we perceive whatever it is that makes us comfortable with what we're seeing or what we're communicating with, what we're dealing with. You know, I'm comfortable with Casper. You know what I mean? Like, for lack of a better description, I'm comfortable there. I like that, and I'm not saying that I'm opposed to anything else. I did go Bigfoot hunting one time, and was open and was like, ready to receive whatever it is that, if there was something out there, Yeah. But for me, I love this paranormal side of it, and I think a lot of that for a lot of people is, they've had loved ones that passed away. So they want that confirmation that there's something there afterwards, and that brings me back to, okay, so you went to Catholic school. So obviously you were raised in a religious Catholic home.
Yeah.
So does your family, if you don't mind, how do they feel about your paranormal journey and all of this?
They've always been, I didn't really tell them about it at first. They actually didn't know about my shadow figure experience until they were watching Ghost Hunters and saw like the first, like what we would call an evergreen, where you're in front of the green screen and they put that TAPS logo behind you. And I tell like my origin story and I say what happened. My parents are like, "That was in our house back in Providence?" I'm like, "Yeah." Like, how come you didn't say anything? It's like, I've always been a little loopy. I didn't want you to think I was actually crazy. And so I didn't want to say anything, but they've had activity in their house where they live now and everything. So it's always been very easy conversation, and I feel like a lot of times too, like it's, there's, for want of a better term, there's Catholics and then there's super Catholics, like,
Yes.
I don't need to be, I hope I get to at least get maybe on the wait list to get an invitation up to heaven when I'm done, but I don't need to be the first person there, to touch Christ if he comes back to earth. If I'm somewhere around, that'd be great. But people are like, I've had people come to conventions and, they'll come to my table and they're like, I just came here to tell you that I think you're going to hell for what you're doing. I'm like, you paid cover to come in and tell me that? I was like, let's talk about the Bible if you want. Like, we can talk about the books written by the Essenes. We can talk about Christ coming back and saying, "Touch my side, I'm not a ghost," when he talks to Didymus. We can talk about him being perceived walking on water as a spirit walking toward them. There's so many times that spirits and things are mentioned. In the book of Samuel, they talk about conjuring up a spirit. And yeah, I do agree. Like, when I speak with spirit, if I'm lucky enough to have those moments, I never ask the big questions, like about the end game for myself. Like, I don't look for future type events. I just want to know what's going on now. Like what they're doing, what's it like? One of my favorite things to do, because we know in reality that if we do get EVPs, they're very short, usually 1 to 2 words, maybe sometimes 3. So I always just say, give me 1 word to describe what it's like where you are now. Like, just something really simple.
Great question.
And those things are really meaningful when you get a response to that,
Absolutely.
I mean, if you use like a ghost box, you may get longer sentences, but if you're just doing true EVP recording and you get that 1 word and it's, in a young female's voice, and it's just you and 1 other dude, I'm like, okay, that's definitely not us.
Right.
Around, I mean, it happened in Latvia. I was in a small, you can ask Barry when you speak with him. We were in a small prison cell in Latvia, the two of us and our camera dude, who's this great surfer guy out of LA. And like this woman's voice fills this chamber speaking in Latvian. And we're like, what? Like, I get chills just thinking about it. Like,
Wow.
what's going on right now? Like,
Yeah.
how is it possible?
Yeah. And how how do people explain that? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, skeptics, scientists, the people like that, they will argue, because I always say, how do you mix spiritual and scientific together to get an answer? Like, I feel like it doesn't work, because spiritual is based on faith, perception, what you believe, all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
I know that I'm not trying to convince anybody that ghosts exist, because I've had my own personal experiences. I've EVPs, same situation, was just me and another guy, and this woman, we were turning the lights off to do an investigation, and all of a sudden, and she had an accent.
Yeah.
And all you hear is, "Are you trying to sleep?" Like intelligently asking, because we're shutting the lights off and stuff. And it was loud, like she was standing in the room with us,
Yeah.
Like, how do you sleep?
Those moments are amazing. Like, it really is. And I think you're right. Like, to me, I've always felt like Barry and I, our first book we wrote, The Complete Approach, talked about bringing the metaphysical understandings together with scientific measurement. And I think that there's room for that. It doesn't have to be just one for the other. I mean, for me, I much more enjoy the spirituality of it, but I understand, for the purposes of trying to explain to a client what's going on, or for the purposes of television, like, you need to record things, you need to have some unit of measurement which you can then produce and say, okay, this is what we experience. It's not just all personal experiences. But for me, as I look back, like, over the time of which I've done this, those personal experiences, they do like add up. I've been working a lot with Brian Cano lately, and then Brian's such a dear friend of mine. We've got this new little project called Pathways. We go and we film locations. We bring it to theaters. It's a lot of fun. But I've learned so much about Brian, because he was very much like a hardcore skeptic on things. And now he's very much a skeptical believer. And he has a new book called Grains of Sand. And it's a perfect description. He said, all those personal events from every place I went, all those experiences were one little grain of sand. I was like, that was weird. And I throw it away. But Brian said, at some point I looked down and like, I'm on a beach of experiences. He's like, how do I do all of this? And I think that's a great way to put it, and it's absolutely true. The more you do this, I mean, I've been very blessed to have gone to like 27 countries doing investigation work. I've been investigating since I was 15, and I'll be 45 next month. So it's like 30 years doing this stuff. And I get to see amazing things, and I get to experience stuff with people all over the world. And to see, what I really love is the reverence or spirit, by people that maybe aren't like hardcore believers in all the paranormal, but the reverence for the understanding that spirit moves from this life onto something else is so amazing and so beautiful. And the thing that frustrates me the most is when I have to go back to work the next day, and I'm like, I just recorded an EVP of this woman's voice and blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, now I got to sit here and press buttons in front of a screen. I'm like, none of this matters. What am I doing? It's like,
Oh my God,
it's
I
so
know.
hard to be like that close to the spiritual realm, and like you can almost like touch it and taste it, and it's like, back to resetting a password again. Like, what happened?
Yeah.
We weren't meant for this, Taryn. We weren't meant for the amount of like, I know you got to work to survive, like, but I always think back, like, I was at Josh Gates, and when we went down to Destination Truth, and we went to the Amazon, those people that lived out there, like, that was it. There's no computers. Nobody had to like get them, like text them a code so they go to their bank account. They're like, they go out, they hunt, they gather, they live together. And yeah, maybe by our standards, it seems like so subpar. Those people seem so happy, like ridiculously happy.
I know.
It seems wonderful,
I know. And that's the thing. Like, I say it all the time. I'm like, I don't want to be on TV. I just want to do this all the time. Like, I want to investigate. I want to, like, do all kind. I want to learn. I want to travel. I want to go to places that are cool, because I love, the biggest thing I love about going to places is the history, the historic side and stuff. I respect the history so much, and I don't get to go to all over the world, or you know what I mean? Like, I mean, and to across the United States, and this and that. So, because I'm in the medical field too. So, it's, even during COVID, I was working. You know what I mean? So I didn't have off. There was no downtime for me. So, I do the best I can with my time. But, I always say, like, I get just as excited, when you're listening back. I'm listening to hours and hours of recordings and this and that, but you get that one, and that just makes you keep wanting to keep going.
Right.
It's like watching a meteor shower. When you see a meteor shoot across, you're like, oh, where's the next one?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I just saw one. You're waiting for the next one. You
Yeah.
get so excited about it.
And sometimes that drought in between, like I remember going on case after case where I wouldn't get anything, and sometimes nobody on the team did, but sometimes like everybody else was getting something. I'm like, man, this is my third case. I'm like, I must really suck at this. But I really feel like a lot of times it's the energy circles themselves too. Like I've noticed, when I was working with Barry, we get a lot of great activity together. When I work with KJ, it's kind of the same thing. My buddy Cody, he's been on recently on Ghost Hunters with Satori. We go and do investigations together locally in New England, and our energy just works well together, and it seems to attract more. And I kind of feel like the spirits that we attract are similar to the energy that we have. The people that you'd be friendly with in this life are probably also going to interact with you in the afterlife. So anytime they send me to a prison and there's like some big angry alpha male that's there, I'm not going to get a response. I hardly ever do, if I've ever gotten one. I usually get women and children. 9 times out of 10, that's who I get. And that's, I like to think that I'm easy to talk to. I'm very childlike. I'm very innocent. I usually am sitting around eating candy, just telling stupid jokes and listening to music. So, I try to create a warm environment for that type of conversation. But I think it does come down a lot to energy and how we relate to each other and how we relate to the other side too.
Absolutely. Now, what has been your most, I don't want to say scary. I hate that word.
Yes, I don't want to scary either.
What's been your most your number one experience that you've had in all these years? Like that one time that has stuck out.
So it's weird because I've had some cool stuff happen. Like a lot of people always bring up Lep Castle, getting knocked to the ground in Lep Castle. I've never had anything of that level of physical encounter before by a spirit, and at the time I didn't know what to think, and I had to go outside, get my head together, come back in. But it taught me a very important lesson about being respectful, because I was kind of being like a little foul mouth and like off camera, like kind of mocking the place and just trying to stir stuff up. And I'm not a provoker by nature. I don't think I did a good job at it, but I definitely made something angry. I was like, but that's the end of the conversation. I was like, so that method doesn't do anything really.
Right.
And so then I started trying to be more cerebral about it and how I conduct my investigations. And that has paid off the most. The first experience that really cemented my love for this, seeing a shadow figure as a child, I was like, this is amazing. And then I started going to local places and bringing people out, and random people would show up at my job. I'd bring them with me. But this, it's uncontrolled environment. You never know who else is there. There's other teenagers there, whatever. So you can never really validate anything. Right. And it wasn't until I was with Ghost Hunters at St. Augustine Lighthouse in Florida. And Brian Harnoir and I are going up that spiral staircase. And the other guys, I think Steve and Jay, had heard a woman's voice say help. And I believe it was residual, because personally, I don't believe spirits are trapped, and people can believe whatever they want. That's completely fine too. But I just don't believe a loving God or goddess would ever trap people. I think sometimes people linger. Some people maybe hang around maybe a little too long. But I don't believe that God would ever lock the door, But but anyway, so Brian and I go in there, and I remember my IR battery's dying, and we're starting to go up, and we start to hear this woman's voice. And as I look up, Brian and I just froze.
I remember that.
I was looking for this for years of my life, and I'm like, there is a woman standing there. Like I could see, everyone's, lady in white or gray. It's because we just can't see all the spectrum where they are. But you can see like the pleats in her dress and the curls in her hair. And she's pacing, and I'm like shaking with the camera, and like my camera is only getting like a white blur because I'm shaking and the IR's dying. But I was like, now what do I do? I've been waiting for this forever. And I flew, and I remember Brian asked her to come down a level, and she did, but she didn't walk around. She just came down a level. And I was like, what is going on right now?
Wow.
Like ball of light and gone. And I've been back there many times, and we've had a lot of cool experiences. I've never seen her again. And I've been lucky enough to have seen maybe 3 or 4 apparitions in all the years I've been doing this, because it's not very common. You see shadows, you see black masses, that kind of thing. But to see something with that much detail, and it just blew my mind. And that'll always be like that one moment where I was like, oh my God, like, what am I looking at?
Yeah, that sounds
to do.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Was that the same time that you guys got that thing looking over?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We had the like
That's
the
one of my favorite episodes. It
Oh,
really is. It's one of my favorite episodes. I
yeah.
thought it was such a great episode.
Well, the nice thing with that is no one else is in there because you have one
Right.
door in and one way out of the lighthouse. So nobody goes by that camera inside. No one's walking up, and you just see that lean over. It's like, okay, where did that come from? What just,
Right.
you know?
That was an awesome episode. And
Yeah.
and
One of
the
my
other
favorites.
what happened?
It's still one of my favorites for sure. Like just
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember. I have like my favorites in my head where it's like, oh, because you guys were such a big influence. You know what I mean? So it's those kind of things like stick with people. You know, I mean,
yeah.
um, you know, I mean, there was a episode. I don't know if you were there. Like again,
I
because
don't know if I was there either. I get very confused. Always in the dark. I never know where things
I
are.
remember, like, I know you transitioned to the international, but I don't remember. But it was an episode where it was a private house, I think in Virginia, West Virginia, or something like that. But Steve was like getting up off the couch, and this shadow, but then you could basically make out a woman, like a girl. But like as he was getting up off the couch, you could see this thing like pop up.
Oh,
I get chills thinking about that one because
yeah.
that one was like, I mean, like you could clearly see this woman and like almost like a flannel shirt, and I mean, like there's those episodes like, and
Yeah.
the St. Augustine one is definitely one that is one of my favorites for
Those
sure.
moments are few and far between, but when they happen, they carry so much magnitude. There's so much weight to them, and that's what I think people miss. I think people miss in trying to make sensationalistic claims or videos or photoshopped pictures. I think that they're really doing a disservice to themselves because a lot of these things are pretty obvious. And if you've done this long enough, you know that the rarity of seeing something that you can even vaguely make out
Absolutely.
is it's so hard to do. And so when those moments come, they mean so much. It's
Yeah.
like I'm a boy that loves Christmas, but if I could have eggnog like tomorrow, I would have it. But if I had it every day for the whole year, it wouldn't mean as much as when I can have eggnog around Christmas time. There's something
Absolutely.
that I've always been a limited edition food guy. And we talked briefly off camera, but again, if you do drink responsibly. But this is a pumpkin ale, and I love the pumpkin ales, but they're only out for that limited time. And
Right.
so I stock up in September when they come out, and I have a fridge in the basement that's just for my pumpkin ales and ciders.
Love it.
I have to do it sparingly. I don't have it every day, but like once a week, I'm like, oh, today's a pumpkin day, and it's like a rare treat. And I feel like that's the paranormal. It's that rare treat, and when it happens, you're like, I'm so glad I sat here for 7 or 8 hours tonight. And for the last 2 weeks when we did this, we got nothing because now we got this, and it makes it that much sweeter, And
Absolutely.
that's how it should be. Imagine if we walked around, there's always just ghosts around, and be like, hey, who cares? Nobody would give a damn.
Yeah, it's not exciting. I mean,
No.
like I remember, like I was a trooper, the live Halloween episodes at the
Oh, yeah.
Stanley Hotel, and I remember like sitting there and like almost falling asleep, and then Jason and Grant getting that little girl like laughing, and I sat straight up. I was like, oh my god, this was worth all 9 hours.
Yeah, for sure. And but I mean, you go out, you investigate, so that's how it is, and sometimes it works, and sometimes you go and for us for the show, as long as there's a story arc, as long as they're okay, these are the claims. Either we find something paranormal or we can explain the claims. Either one's fine, But I mean, there's times we've gone out where there's neither. Nothing happens, and we have no explanation of what happened. So no one's going to watch us just sitting there. So like that gets scrapped, and then we go back on the road and go somewhere else. I remember being overseas. There was other issues too, with like you had to like bribe people to get in places, and you had to pay off people to get your equipment through and all this stuff because a lot of these countries are not set up, like we're set up here.
Yeah.
And we were in Singapore, rather. Singapore, we were there for like 2 weeks and never filmed. But like we still had to stay on the road until they found somewhere else for us to go.
Oh
And
wow.
these things were like natural things that happened. And then we go to a place and like the claims are kind of vague and seem kind of bogus. And then we investigate. And we're like, yeah, there's nothing here that we could explain, and nothing happened. It's like, well, now you stay on the road again because we still need another episode. And so it continues, But then all of a sudden something happens, and you're like, wow, like this was amazing. Like, where did this come from? why can't I do this all the time? But then you have to appreciate that
I
it's
know.
that rarity that makes it so beautiful.
Yeah. Have you ever been to a location where the area has scared you? Not it being,
Mm.
like the area, like around you, the people that, whatever.
When we went to Brazil, um, one of the cases that we did, the cultural center, I believe it was in the favelas, was in like their like tough area, to the point where the police don't go into the favelas.
Oh,
There are gang members that sit at the border streets with automatic weapons, and we had to pay off protection from the gang, which is basically what it looked like, a 14-year-old kid with a gun that was like half his size. But he
oh
was
my
part of the gang, so he wasn't really defending us against everybody. It was just a payoff. Um, our fixer. So every time we went to a new country, we'd work with a local production company to help us translate our EVP questions, so we could ask them sometimes off camera because we were so bad at them. But we would use them to help us say, like, where do we go in town, where's safe, where's not. And they had told us when we were going to film the cultural center, they're like, listen, the police won't go in here. When the police have to come in to get someone, he has to be like a top level gang member, and they come in and extradite him with a helicopter. They will
Oh
not.
yeah, I'd be scared too.
And so I'm like, okay, great. This will be fun. So we have to wait till a certain time. We have to meet this guy. They do the exchange, and then this young kid escorts us on his motorcycle or whatever he had, with this gun on his back, and he just sits outside all night. And then Rob and I were on the roof because there was a story of someone that gets shot on the roof, surprisingly. And while we're up there doing an EVP session, we hear gunshots. And I remember Rob looked at me. He's like, I'm like, yeah, I don't think this is worth it. Let's just go back inside, And they wouldn't let us leave till sunup because the kid told us, he's like, there's other gangs in here. He's like, and they know you guys are here, and they know the equipment you have, and they're waiting at the end of the street. He's like, so you have to wait here till sunup. He's like, as long as you stay till sunup, you'll be fine. And that's what we had to do.
I'm like, okay, say no more. I'm waiting till sunup.
Yeah, I can hang out here. They usually made us film right till sunup anyway, because it costs so much, and not just to send the cast and crew over there, but they also had to ship all the gear everywhere. So it cost a lot to produce GHI. So we would film early on to the day. We'd do the tour, all the thing, and then we would be there, until almost sunrise, if not at sunrise. I remember talking to Barry one night. We were driving back. Barry and I always split the driving, and it's not like being here, especially here in Rhode Island, you can drive through the whole state in 45 minutes. But out in Europe, it's sometimes, like we're in Sweden or wherever we were, sometimes it's like a 2-hour ride back to the hotel. So you get done filming at 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. Then you still got to drive 2 hours after you pack. And so Barry and I would switch the details. Joe Chim would always be sound asleep as soon as you hit the ignition. But I said to Barry one day, I said, Barry, you know how many sunrises I've seen with my wife? 0. I was with you. Like, our relationship is starting to take a weird turn. I think it's time for me to go home. And,
That's so funny.
Yeah,
So what did they do? Did they just say, hey, we want to do Ghost Hunters International, who's up for it? And
so
you said, okay, hi, me.
no, so I was again, being in the medical field. I just started Ghost Hunters, and I had gotten engaged shortly after. And I was like, I don't feel like being on a TV show is a way to provide for my family. Like, we're on season 2. Like, I've got a good job. I was managing an ambulance company. I was working in oral surgery, doing anesthesia. I was like, these are good jobs I know aren't going anywhere. TV, anything could happen. And so I was always a part-time guy. Like, oh, yeah, you're local. I'll go do a case, whatever. And then after a little while, I got married, had our daughter. And I was like, yeah, maybe this isn't for me, So I kind of stepped away for a little bit. And then I was working for an advertising company and still working in oral surgery. And the call came in, hey, we're going to be doing this international show. Are you interested? And as much as I appreciated, originally I wasn't. Like, as much as I appreciated the opportunity, like, I had a newborn, I was like, these moments I'm not going to get back.
Right.
And being a father was first and foremost for me, like, the most important thing. I still feel it's my biggest duty here. And now it's, fending off teenage boys. But
that'll be forever.
Yeah. I was like, I need to be here. But then after that, it was like when the market was crashing, the housing market, like the bubble burst, everything was going bad. And working in oral surgery, we also do cosmetic surgery. My hours started to get limited. And then they called me again, like halfway through season 1. They're like, hey, we're doing some recasting. Would you reconsider? And so I talked to my wife about it, and I was like, I'll be gone for like 6-8 weeks, but then I'll be home for a while. And
Right.
so we decided to do that. And it was difficult because, the cell phones and stuff, it wasn't like today. Skype was about as good as you could get for communicating back home. And
Right.
Skype has been clunky. Most of the places we were at didn't have internet. You would have to go to like a dial-up cafe, like down the street.
Yeah.
So like I would constantly get hacked. Like my credit card would get swiped or whatever. There's always problems. And so after 2 years of that, like it was really weighing on my heart. I was like, I need to be home with my family. So they worked it out where Steve and Tango were going to do academy. They're like, well, we'll have you come, fill in for these guys when they do academy. So I still get to stay a part of the group, and I get to work back there with Britt and everybody, and Amy and Chris. So I did that for a while, and then I kind of went back just to doing my thing here locally, and then they asked me to come back again. And so KJ and I teamed up there with them, and we finished like the final 2 seasons where the whole band was together,
Yeah.
Then everybody splintered off, but they've always been so kind to me to bring me back, the network and production company and Jay and everybody. So I get to do a Ghost Nation with them. And then these last
Ghost Hunters,
season and a half, we're back on Ghost Hunters again.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been great, and I balance out the day job. I get a lot of things going on all the time between the day job, the motivational lectures, the books, and the traveling. But I don't need to sleep a hell of a lot, Sharon. I don't know what's going on.
I don't either. And I don't have half of what's going on that you do.
I like and I don't recommend this to anybody, but every like second Saturday, I have what I call my Odin sleep, and I'll sleep like 14 hours straight, like just straight out. When I just wake up,
How do you stay asleep that long?
A very well balanced mix of Benadryl and melatonin. But you take it all at once. You're gonna like space it out, I take the Z-Quil, I take one of those, and I'll be up for like a half hour. Then I'll take the Benadryl, I'll get a little drowsy, and then right before I fall asleep, I take like one of each. And then
melatonin is amazing.
Oh, that's how I was able to do the international shows, because like time zones were always changing. You never knew where you were. You're always on a plane. And I was like, I don't like a lot of prescribed medications. If people need them, it's completely fine. Like take what you need, do the right thing for yourself. But I didn't want to take like a sleeping medication, because I know a lot of family members and friends that were on them. And side effects always seem wonky. So I would get on the plane. I would eat a roll of cookie dough, keep my sugar level up. I'd have 2 glasses of red wine, and I would have 2 Benadryl. And then I'd wake up in another country, like ready to go. Like, what are we doing now? Like, let's Malaysia. Wow. Sure.
Wow. I feel like we've only been on the plane for like 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's a lot. The only time it didn't work out, we went from New Zealand to England, but they flew us across the United States. It was a 27-hour total flight. Oh. We stopped in LA at LAX, and just for an hour for them to fuel up the plane. And we all had to stand in this one room. Like you couldn't go to the airport. You all stood in one room. There was like a Coke machine, a snack machine, and the restrooms. And then they fueled the plane. And everybody had to get back on. So it was like 27 hours of flight time with 1 hour break in a room. So I remember like waking up 2 or 3 times, like, oh, still not there. It was so strange, but
wow.
It was an adventure. I'm thankful for it, but it's been quite the adventure.
Oh my! You got to see so many cool places.
Oh my God, absolutely! And like it's just like you. Like I love the history of places. I love architecture. Like walking around Prague and looking at these old buildings and everything. Like that's why I put into a lot of my books and stuff. Like my books aren't really about outside of the ones I wrote with Barry. My books aren't really about the paranormal or paranormal experiences or research. It's about like the journey. The things I've observed while traveling and the people that I've met and the weird stories. And I try to put it all like together in a weird motivational comic thing that is my life. And it's just, I remember just being in Africa one day in Johannesburg, sitting outside the store that had no sign, and it had all kinds of random things. And it's like whatever people seemed to need was at that store, but it was always like weird stuff. And there, I'm like, this is such a weird community. I'm looking at I think it was the Tabletop Mountain. And I'm like, I grew up like, 2 blocks from the projects, and, like my dad worked 2 jobs, and my mom did the best she could to keep our family together and like keep things going. I never thought I would ever leave the country,
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was able to travel the world because I followed a passion and I followed a dream. And, as you alluded to earlier, Taryn, like working in healthcare, the hours are ridiculous. Our life now anyway, like everybody works like a job and a half or 2 jobs because it costs so much just to get by, which is so just ridiculously absurd. But
Yeah.
like, if something matters to you, if there's a passion or a dream or something that really matters to you, it can't be, well, I didn't have time to do it. Like if you want to write a book, you want to learn to paint, there's 10 minutes a day. There's at least 10 minutes a day that you spend looking at your phone, like playing some stupid game. You have to take that 10 minutes a day and put it specifically toward that. No other distractions. I'm just working on this for 10 minutes. And hopefully,
Absolutely.
gradually, that 10 minutes gets a little longer, but it has to become a priority or nothing's going to change. And you're just going to go through human experience, punching a clock, putting a foundation under some of the millionaire's castle and being like, well, that was a life. It shouldn't be that way. We were
Right.
meant for more than this nonsense. And we
Yep.
have to find ways that we can. My uncle, I love my uncle so much. He passed away a couple of years ago, but he used to call it living in the gray area. Like you do enough to survive, like you check the boxes, you pay the bills, but by night or early morning or wherever it is, those 10 minutes, 15 minutes you can squeeze in, you have to feed that passion and you have to
Yeah.
live that dream. You can't just constantly just be a part of the system. So
And it
it's a,
really does. I mean, like, it really like for people, like myself, and probably mostly everybody watching, you want to do this all the time, but we don't get paid for it. So it's
right,
like I work 2 jobs, and my second job is only during the summer, but I make a lot of money doing it, and taking the time off of that is, you know what I mean? Like I'm like, okay, this is going to infringe on my bills, and this is going to,
right,
but I have to do it.
yeah.
I need this. The paranormal field is a passion of mine,
Mhm.
just like Gettysburg is a passion of mine. But I go to Gettysburg once a month. I
Yeah,
need to go.
yeah, that's your place.
At least.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You have to feed the soul and you have to do those passion projects that mean so much. And I'm fortunate enough that, I still investigate locally for free, but being on the show, obviously there's pay that's involved in the event.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I also don't have the luxury of having unlimited time off at work.
Right.
So I've worked it out with the day job now. It's like, guys, I've been here, it's gonna be 20 years this fall. So I've never left you. I've never did anything to cause any harm to the practice. Throughout all the years, the shows, the events, I've never missed work. I've driven through the night to get back home. I've caught red eyes, whatever it was. So now they've allowed me to work remotely when I'm on the road filming.
Oh, that's awesome.
So like, a lot of the stuff, if I'm not assisting in surgery, which I make sure, my surgical shifts are covered, I can do a lot of my job from my laptop. So,
That's awesome.
but the only problem is, again, there's no sleep because I have to be up at 8 a.m. to punch in and do
Right.
the online stuff. And then I get done at like 2 or 3, like I cut the day short so we can go film. Uh,
Right.
but it allows me to be able to do both things. So because the paranormal is something I want to do, and even more so, as much as I love the spirituality of it, we get into it with taps and ghost hunters saying, we're here to help and we want to help people, and that's been a great mantra for many people. And I think a lot of people get into this field wanting to help to explain things or even to learn for themselves, and I still want to do that. But
Yeah.
what I found to be more encouraging and more important to me as I go through this is helping the spirits that are still here, walking this world with me while I'm here. All the people that are trying to find their way through and wonder, what am I doing? Why am I here? How do I not give up? That's why I do so much work with suicide prevention and everything, because I'm like, yeah, I get that spirits have traveled on and they've passed away and we can interact with them. But the people I know I can help are the people that are right here with me now, because I can see that result.
Right.
So that's become like the real burning passion. So I've tried to use the little platform that I've gotten as a tertiary person on a reality TV show, like to try to help the other people I find along the way. So I've got a great little group of misfits. We're all trying to find our way through, and I'm like, screw it, we're doing all right. The fact that you get up every day and you brush your teeth and you go to work and do whatever the hell it is you do,
Absolutely.
like that's a victory. That's good. I'm not about everybody getting a trophy. Like you got to put in the work. You can't
Yeah.
just, but getting out of bed some days, for people that deal with like clinical depression or they're just struggling, like sometimes that's a huge victory, and I can appreciate that. But we
Yeah.
always just baby steps, and just keep going. Just keep going forward all the time.
Absolutely. So I don't know how to word this question.
That's
Okay.
right.
So
Put
I'm,
words out there.
I'm
We'll
gonna,
put it
I'm
together.
gonna, I'm gonna like just say, I, I, I get uncomfortable when people are like, "Oh, we got to investigate this house. A guy killed himself in it." Right?
Yeah.
For me, um, I had a friend commit suicide. So I remember I was walking through his house couple days afterwards.
Mhm.
And I remember thinking, like, if somebody came in here and was like trying to communicate with him and blah 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 and this and that, like, I feel like that wouldn't feel good to me. I don't
Yeah.
know how. I just, it doesn't seem like something. So when people are like, oh, people get excited about, I'm not saying anything bad about anybody, but I
No,
mean,
no,
when
I understand.
you know what I'm saying, like, I
Yeah,
don't,
I
but
get your point completely. It's weird. It's what we do definitely can border on the macabre quite a bit. A place that affected me greatly, not because of anything paranormal that happened when I was there, was the Valeska axe murder house.
mm,
Knowing that a family was murdered there, and it really bothered me to think about the humanity and what went through the person's mind that committed that act, and the innocence of these children ripped away and these people that were all murdered. And I'm like, I honestly, and I love Johnny Hauser that runs it. He's one of the best people I know. But I looked at the place. I'm like, I wish they would just pave this and make it like a parking lot or something. Like, it just seems like it's bad,
yeah,
bad things. And I can see that we can do good stuff with what we do. But I remember doing a case. It was an event. I want to say it was the Jefferson Hotel. We were like, I think it's not allowed to investigations anymore. I think they either dismantled the place or they repurposed it. But one of the stories was about a teenage girl who died by suicide there. And this is something I always caution any investigator I work with, especially if you're with me at an event. I appreciate you coming. I appreciate you paying for the ticket. But if you're going to be someone who's disrespectful, if you're going to be somebody who's going to be gloom and doom all night and playing up negativity and pretending stuff, I'll give you your money back and just go home. I don't
right,
want to bother with that. And I started to see the pattern of questions going, are you sad? Was it horrible being here? And like, it just
mm,
going down that hill. Not only are we speaking to someone who passed away in that way, but everybody else that's in the room is also affected by it. And so I try to tell people, no one wants to be remembered by their last moment in this life.
right,
You
right.
know, except for the rare occasion maybe where somebody goes out with a brothel, it's probably not a great time. Sad or traumatic. I'd like to be like under a tree reading a book and then just done. But we usually don't get to go the way we want to go. So nobody wants to be remembered of that. I remember doing castles out in England and like, oh, the father found out that his daughter was, making love to the farmer boy, so he walled her up alive here. Like, this is horrible. Like, what are we doing? I don't
Right.
So I always try to direct the line of questioning to something positive that was in their life. Did you enjoy doing this? What was your favorite part of this? I don't talk about the death.
Yeah,
I know at one time maybe I did, but I've evolved myself
right,
personally. If other people do it, you do your thing, but not with me, not on my dime, not on my time. I will
right.
not talk to negativity like that. I will not deal with that. And
I
I
love
remember specifically that case with that young lady. She didn't die that many years ago. It's like, and this is something I do in all my investigations. You don't see it on TV because of copyright, but I play music from that time period. Like, let's get like a good vibe going here. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
you listen to, and like, you put up some of the devices, see if they go off. Like, and I remember I had a plasma ball, and we are trying to get her to touch it like to the beat of the music. I was like, were you into boy bands? Were you into alternative? Like, and trying different things to see, but like raising the whole vibration in the room where everybody started feeling better, talking about more positive things instead of the gloom and doom of the last moments that, again, nobody wants to recall those things. So we have abilities as investigators to steer investigations and conversation however we want. And if you're
Yeah.
into dramatic and gloom and doom, fine, but there's a lighter side to these things. You just don't talk about it as much.
I agree. I agree. Like, a lot of people frown. Like, a lot of people have a lot of opinions about like like Penhurst or Eastern State and this and that. Like saying like, oh, how can you go there? The people there were horribly treated and this. And I was like, but you go there to like Penhurst specifically for me.
Mhm.
I love that place, but I go there because I'm like, I'm I'm giving them I'm talking to them. I'm
Yes.
not talking down to them. I'm not treating them the way that they were treated.
Right.
I'm talking to them and talking to them like they're a person,
Yeah.
as opposed to how they were really treated in real life.
It's important, like you said, talk to like people. Like, don't like run an interrogation session. Like, you're not working somebody over under the lights. Like an old trope of how do you know you're dead? How do you feel now that you died? Like, oh my god,
Yeah.
stop it! Like, it hurts my brain to listen to it. Like, There's so many other things you can talk about. Like, why are we focused on the one thing? But I understand our human experience. Part of it is focused on the end. Like I have a whole lecture about upon death and dying, and we have a tendency to focus on the end as a negative thing, and it doesn't have to be. And to your point about places like Penhurst, we had a place here that one of the places I used to go investigate all the time when I was just starting out, and now it's all been leveled and stuff. But it was called the Ladd School, and Dr. Henry Joseph Ladd, started this small schoolhouse for kids that were dropped off that had different mental challenges that nobody understood at that time in like the early 20s or whatever it was. Some of these kids get dropped off without so much as an introduction. They were nonverbal, they were whatever, and parents were just like, I don't know what to do with this. I hear there's some guy there, maybe they'll have a better life. And that was it. We have to remember that, by today's standards, a lot of those things that went down at places like Penhurst and some clinics, even like Waverly, like the tuberculosis center and stuff, like the treatments by today's standards were like, it's horrible. But we have to remember at that time, they didn't know what was going on. They're trying to figure things out. And a lot of these people, you do hear, the off story about the mad scientist and stuff, but how much of that is reality and how much of it has become fabrication over the years?
Right.
It's hard to tell. But we really have to give some credence and credit to the fact that at least they were trying to figure things out.
Right.
Yeah, by today's standards, absolutely horrible and barbaric. But for what they were doing then, to go in and like yell at the doctors and get all puffy chest and screaming, like, what are you doing? Like, these people have been years anyway, and you look like a clown.
Yeah. I agree 100%. And I the first time I went to Penhurst, I found out afterwards because I started to do my ancestry, and I connected with a family member that lives in Georgia. She's like, oh, I saw that you went to Penhurst. You know that we had a cousin that was a resident there.
Oh, really?
I said, oh. I'm like, no, I didn't. No. And they said, yeah, with your last name. He was there for his whole, when he turned 18, they moved him to Hamburg State Hospital is what it was called. But he was a resident of Penhurst almost his whole entire life.
Wow.
And now I don't know the backstories to how he got there, why he was there or anything. But yeah, so I find that interesting that I had this pull to Penhurst.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There, and then afterwards I find out, his family history. Yeah. Wow. I do have a question for you. Being overseas.
Yeah.
So have you ever seen Chernobyl?
No, I've never seen that movie. No.
So wanted to know, like, so there's a group of people that are like, oh, we're gonna do this tour to Chernobyl, right? And it's closed off for the day. Yeah. But they're like, oh, we can go in the back way, sneak in.
Right.
Wow. I don't want to say the end. It's a really good movie, but like it's like there's a reason it was closed off. So my thing to you is like, like, have you ever gone in somewhere where you're like, we shouldn't be doing this, or you know what I mean?
I mean, there's people who have asked, there are places like you wouldn't investigate. I think any of some of the great tragedies of the world, like anything to do with like the horrible camps that the Germans ran back during World War II, or anything to do with like 9/11.
9/11, yeah.
Like those are things I'm like, this is it's such a global tragedy. It's too much to take on, and I don't think it's appropriate to do so. I think it's always just to remember people with love and reverence, and that they're in a better place now, and it's sad the way it had to end. But there's sometimes on investigations, and I'm no Susie Psychic, but you do something long enough. I know now it's funny, when I first started many, many moons ago, everybody was sensitive. Now everyone's an empath. I've got news for you. We're all friggin' empathic. We're supposed to be.
Right. Yeah.
But the problem is we've dulled our senses down so much because we don't care about anybody else, because we just, how many likes did my video get? How many things did this get?
Right.
Connecting ourselves completely. If your friend is sitting next to you and they feel sad, you should also feel sad, Yeah. Now, when that comes to spirit, the same thing. Like, I get that we use devices to communicate, and it's great for TV, and it's great for trying to document things, but there's a spirit in here, and there's a spirit somewhere out there I'm talking to. This, or whatever it is, doesn't need to come in between that,
Exactly.
We are all empathic, but we've kind of dulled those senses, don't use those things anymore. And definitely some people are stronger in it than others. I think some people have not dulled their senses as much. That's why they identify more in that way, which is great if you can do so. Because I think, although you have to find ways to guard yourself, we all have these abilities. We don't use them as much, And it's there's a great movie that came out, unfortunately, right at the beginning of the COVID nightmare in March of 2020, called Onward. It was a Pixar film, and it was about like these magical, like troll-like creatures that had lost their magic because they realized, oh, we can have electricity and press buttons for lights. We don't need to cast spells and get charms and all these things anymore. It's
Oh,
easy.
wow.
In high school, I knew everybody's phone number. I knew everybody's pager number. Now I have to get the phone, so I have no idea who anybody is anymore. We've lost our ability to communicate with each other and to emote with each other, to have sympathy, to have empathy, and it's so sad to see. But by investigating on a regular basis, especially when I'm on the road and doing a lot, there's sometimes I'll walk up to a room and I'll just get to the threshold. I'm like, something doesn't feel right. And I'm not saying like evil or demonic or any of that, but I'm like, I just need to get the breath before I go in there. And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll take the equipment and I'll like slide the REM pod into the floor. I'll put the EVP recorder on the bed or the table, and I'll step back outside. I really believe in allowing spirit to have its space and not disrupting the energy. The worst thing you can do when you see something starting to form is run into it. Like it just dissipates, Don't contaminate it. If something feels like it's there, trust your senses. Use the technology to try to document it, but trust your senses. Step back from it and see, like outside the door, like, hey, I want to give you your space. I kind of feel like maybe there's somebody here. Can you give me a couple of words? Whatever it is, whatever your technique is, but learn to respect the space of others, and then relearn to understand your feelings and respect and realize that you have these abilities and to try to use them to the best that you can. And the more you do it, the better it gets.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're so awesome. Thank you
so much. I don't know about that.
You really are. Before I let you go, because I have had you for an hour and 11 minutes now.
Thank you, dear. My pleasure.
Just quickly tell us what's coming up for you. Like, I know I was supposed to be at Hinsdale, the July 16th, 17th. I think you're going to be there. I was supposed to be there, but unfortunately.
No, I think you're in there. No, I'm not in Hinsdale.
Oh, no? Okay.
Brandy's there. Brandy and Dan, I think, are doing something there. I want to keep up. Hinsdale, so whoever's there, amazing location. Definitely worth your time. Love it there. My next thing is down in New Jersey with my buddy Brian Cano. We're doing Pathways, which is going to be at the theater. But because we filmed one of the Pathways segments over at the Strauss Mansion there, we're going to show that one there, and then also allow just, I think, up to 15 people. I think there's only 3 or 4 tickets left for this part where you can come to the Manor House and investigate with us afterwards. But there's still some tickets left for the theater. So that's in July. And then from there, I'm also going to be down at the Old Park Hotel down in Ballinger, Texas. And I've got all kinds of weird stuff coming up, and I'm really excited about it, but I can't remember where I'm going all the time. That's part of my problem. Don't know where I am. Don't know where I'm going.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so I'm going to be in Texas. I've got a doubleheader weekend in September. I'm going to Bobby Mackey's for the first time, and my good friend Television's Chris Williams.
Oh,
and the night before, I'm going to be at the Midway Hotel in Western Pennsylvania. And I'm going to be there with Heather Taddy, who I really enjoy working with. We've never done an event together. We've done we've had conversations, we've done conventions, but this will be our first investigation together. We're having a root beer social. This because I like to do weird stuff, and so does she. So we're having a root beer social for our people. Yeah, hang out, get fancy,
Yeah.
We'll be in Texas. I'm going to Kansas. The most recent episode of Ghost Hunters that was on Travel Channel. I'm going to be back there. I'm going to Hotel Josephine and to the lake house that we investigated for the show. So everything's at DustinPari.com. Super easy to find. All my events there. And YouTube.com/Dustin Pari. You can check out my motivational stuff. I have this little series called Hey, Got a Minute. I have a whole nother batch of them we haven't released yet. But I dress up in funny costumes and I tell weird stories. And they're all like 3 minutes long. Yeah, have fun with it. Enjoy life.
I love it.
Weird.
I love it. You're awesome. There's like so many layers. You're like an onion. It is peel, and then there's like more.
Yeah.
Like, I wish my show was 2 hours.
Well, I appreciate everybody that joined in here with us tonight. And,
absolutely. Thank you so much,
A
Dustin.
lot of familiar names there. A lot of good people. My good friend Christy Porter's there. I know her very well. I've seen a lot of familiar names. And God bless you, Taryn. I appreciate your time. And thanks so much for the opportunity tonight.
Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you. I enjoyed it as well did everybody else. Everybody has been, saying how awesome you are. So
Oh, and let's not forget our friend Tim in the Autographs event.
Tim
Tim
is, I love to, I am so
yes,
in love with him.
Tim is amazing, and we're doing a Autographs event with Chris Williams actually as well, and so that should be a good time because we get to go bowling. So that'll be fun, along with the dashing and charming Shane. So we're gonna have a heck of a time.
Oh, yeah, that's gonna be a good
Yeah,
one. Yeah, for sure.
so yeah, so that's nice too because we help out animals, so they need love
Yes.
too. So
I love Tim's whole I mean, Tim's been
amazing.
on my show probably 3 or 4 times. I
Yeah,
am totally in love with him. I think he is just like the best. I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. It was the first time I ever heard of a paranormal event raising money for animals. I'm a huge animal lover.
yeah. And
So,
sometimes the animals are there and you get to pet them. I love it. It's so
uh,
cool.
I
It's
mean,
one of my favorites.
it's amazing.
Yeah.
But yes, so I will let you go. I
Yeah.
appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much.
My
And I
pleasure.
hope to maybe run into you at something, down the
Yeah,
road,
for
um,
sure.
and get to investigate with you again.
Sounds
'Cause,
good.
back
Well,
then it was a long time ago, but
go back to Gettysburg. It'll be a good time.
yeah, absolutely.
Indeed.
So thank you. Good night. And once again, just say your websites again really quick so people.
Sure. It's dustinpari.com. If you want to learn more about the event, just go to that page. And also, if you really want to check out pathways, you can go to whichpathwayyouchoose.com. That's a lot of fun.
Awesome. Thank you. You're
All right.
great. And like I said, Barry's coming on. You can always crash the party. In a couple weeks, but he'll be on. So thank you again. Enjoy your pumpkin beer. Cheers to
Okay.
you.
Sounds good. Here's to you. Have a good night.
Good night.
Bye bye.